Don't come, just send the money. My daughter said, so I did. But it wasn't what she expected. The last thing she said before hanging up was, don't come, just send the money. That sentence has been echoing in my head every night since, not because it hurt, but because of how calmly she said it. Like I was just a wallet with a pulse. I sat alone in the kitchen, the winter sun falling in dull squares across the floor, holding the phone to my chest long after the line went dead. The silence in the house wasn't new. Your ears get used to the absence of voices after a while. But this time, it felt like it had a weight. Like her words were still floating in the air, pushing against the walls. Claire, my daughter, had always been practical, smart, ambitious. The kind of girl who corrected my grammar at 10 and applied for scholarships on her own at 15. She was going places, and she knew it. I was proud. Still am. But somewhere along the line, the phone call stopped being about, "Hi, Dad. How are you?" and more about requests, small at first, like help with tuition or rent. Then bigger. Then colder. This last time was different. "I know you're planning to come for Christmas," she said. "But Dad, it's just too much right now. The kids are busy. Matt's working overtime. And we don't have space. Just send the money, okay? We'll FaceTime or something." I didn't answer right away. I could hear the sound of her trying not to sigh. "It's not personal," she added. That part hit the hardest. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me, and said I understood. I told her to check the mail in a few days. And I meant it. I sent the money. But I also did something else. I boarded the train at 5:40 a.m., dressed in my best coat, the one your mother used to say made me look like a gentleman. I had the gift box in my lap, wrapped clumsily, I'll admit, but with care. Inside was a photo album. Not just any album, but one I spent the last 3 months putting together. Pictures from when Claire was little. Her first steps. Her Halloween costumes. Her graduation. The kind of things people forget they even lived. I didn't go to surprise her or guilt her. I just needed to see for myself. To understand where I had gone wrong, how the little girl who once cried when I left for work now flinched at the idea of me being around too much. The train ride was long, and the city she lived in now had a kind of chill that wasn't just from the weather. I stood in front of her building that afternoon, heart hammering in my chest like I was about to go on stage. When I rang the buzzer, I told myself if she didn't answer, I'd just leave the box and go. No drama. No scene. But she answered. Her voice, sharp through the intercom, said hello. "It's me," I said. "Dad." There was a pause, longer than it should have been. "What are you doing here?" "I was in the area," I lied. "Thought I'd drop off your Christmas gift in person." Another pause. Then the door buzzed open. She looked thinner in person, tired, her hair in a bun, half falling apart. She didn't hug me, just stepped aside and let me in like I was a plumber or an unwanted salesman. "Claire," I started, but she raised a hand. "Let's just keep this quick, okay?" The apartment was clean but chaotic. Toys everywhere. Dishes piled. Something cooking in the slow cooker, but the smell was off like it had been on too long. A little boy peeked out from behind the couch. Big brown eyes. Must be Jamie, the youngest. He looked at me like I was a stranger. I suppose I was. "Matt's not home," she said, walking toward the kitchen. "And we weren't expecting company." "I won't stay long," I said, setting the box down on the table. "Just wanted to see you. Give you this." She had the box like it might explode. "It's just photos," I offered. "Of you. Us." She didn't say anything. Just stood there, one hand on her hip, the other wiping her forehead. "Claire," I said, more gently now. "What happened?" Her jaw clenched. "I told you not to come." "I know. You never listen." "I try. But sometimes trying isn't enough." She turned away, busying herself with dishes that didn't need cleaning. I sat down on the edge of the couch, next to Jamie, who had crept closer. I smiled at him, and to my surprise, he didn't run. He held out a toy truck. "Cool truck," I said. He grinned. "Who's that?" he asked. "That's your grandpa," Claire muttered without turning around. "Grandpa," he echoed. "Really?" I nodded. "Really?" She let me stay for dinner. I could see it wore her down to have me there, not because she hated me, but because she didn't know where I fit in her life anymore. I watched her move around the kitchen, juggling the kids and the food and the exhaustion. I wanted to help, but everything I did seemed to make her flinch. Like I was messing with a system she had barely managed to keep standing. We ate in silence, mostly. Jamie told me about school. Lily, the older one, kept checking her phone, occasionally glancing at me with mild curiosity. Claire hardly spoke. When it was time to leave, I stood at the door with my coat back on, the box still unopened on the table behind her. "Thanks for dinner," I said. She nodded. "Thanks for stopping by." "Claire," I said again, "do you know why I really came?" Her eyes, tired and rimmed with guilt, met mine. "To make me feel bad?" "No," I said. "To remember who we were. And maybe figure out who we still could be." I didn't wait for her response. Just smiled, kissed Jamie's forehead when he reached up for a hug, and walked out. Back at the train station, I sat on the same bench I had hours earlier. I didn't cry. Old men like me don't cry in public. But I felt something shake loose inside me. Something that had been held together by pride and routine for too long. My phone buzzed. A text. From her. I looked through the box. "Thank you." That was it. But it was something. And something was more than nothing. The train pulled away from the station with a slow groan, and I sat back in my seat, watching the city shrink into distance. My hands were still cold from outside, but inside, I felt something warmer flickering like the smallest ember of hope. Claire had texted. She'd looked through the album. That meant she touched it, opened it, maybe even stopped long enough to feel something. Maybe she remembered the way her little hand used to fit in mine, or the sound of me calling her pumpkin when she scraped her knee. I imagined her turning the pages slowly, maybe even showing the kids. But I didn't let that hope get too big. I've learned the hard way that expectations, especially with family, can be a dangerous thing. Still, I stayed up that night after I got home. No TV, no distractions. Just me, a cup of lukewarm tea, and the quiet. I didn't sleep much. Didn't want to. My mind kept replaying her face when she saw me on the doorstep. Surprise. Annoyance. But under that, maybe, something else. Something softer. A week passed. No calls. No texts. Then on a Tuesday evening, right after sunset, my phone rang. Not buzzed. Not pinged. Rang. Claire. I stared at her name, heart thudding like I was 16 again. "Hi," I said, trying to sound casual. "Hey," she said, her voice smaller than I remembered. "Do you have a minute?" I nodded before realizing she couldn't see me. "Always." She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I'm sorry I was cold when you came." "I understand." "No," she said. "You don't. And that's part of the problem. I've been so overwhelmed, and I didn't know how to ask for help. It was easier to ask for money. Safer. Safer. Less emotional. Cleaner. Money doesn't come with questions or judgment or feelings." I let her talk. That's something I've learned too. Sometimes love means shutting up and listening. "I looked through every page of the album," she continued. "Jamie wanted to hear stories about when I was little. Lily asked why we never visit you. I didn't have a good answer. You don't owe me an explanation," I said. "But I owe myself one," she replied. "Dad, I miss having a father. Not just a provider. I miss you." That sentence undid me. I sat there, blinking hard, gripping the phone with both hands. "I miss you too," I said finally, voice cracking. We stayed on the phone for an hour. She told me about the kids, about Matt's job, about how hard it is being a mom in a world that expects perfection and offers no help. I told her I never expected her to be perfect just to let me in. When we hung up, she said, "Would you come back? Not now, but soon, when we can do it right." I said yes. The second visit was different. She picked me up from the station, the kids in the back seat yelling, "Grandpa," before I'd even opened the door. She looked tired, but her smile was real this time. There was no awkward silence, no forced small talk. Just life, messy, noisy, wonderful life. We played board games. I helped Jamie build a Lego tower taller than he was. I made pancakes the way Claire used to like them, with chocolate chips hidden in the middle. At night, after the kids were in bed, we sat on the porch with mugs of tea, talking about your mother, how she would have loved being a grandma, how she used to hum while watering the plants. "I wish she were here," Claire said, staring into the darkness. "She is," I replied. "Every time you sing Lily to sleep. Every time Jamie draws a picture and runs to show you. She's there." Claire reached over and held my hand. No words, just silence, the good kind. One morning, a few weeks after my second visit, Claire called and said, "Dad, can I ask you something big?" I braced myself. "Sure. Would you ever consider moving closer? Maybe even living with us? We've been talking about it. The kids would love it. And so would I." For a moment, I couldn't speak. After your mother died, I never thought I'd live with anyone again. I got used to the quiet, to frozen dinners and crossword puzzles, and checking the mailbox like it mattered. But suddenly, the idea of reading bedtime stories, of morning chaos, of being needed, it felt like oxygen. Yes, I said. If you're sure. I'm sure, she whispered. We started small. I rented an apartment a few blocks from their house. The kids helped me decorate hand-drawn pictures taped to the fridge, plastic dinosaurs on the bookshelf. Every evening, Claire would drop by after work. Sometimes we'd cook together. Sometimes we'd just sit. One night, she said, "You know what I remember most from when I was a kid?" I shook my head. That time we got lost in the woods during that camping trip. I was scared out of my mind, and you just kept saying, "We're not lost. We're just exploring a new way home." I laughed. I was lying. I had no idea where we were. "I know," she said, smiling. "But I believed you. Because I trusted you." She leaned her head on my shoulder. "I want to believe like that again," she whispered. Things weren't perfect. Nothing ever is. There were days Claire snapped at the kids or cried for no reason. Times I forgot my medication or got too stubborn to accept help. Matt and I had our awkward moments. But we worked through them. We showed up. And that was new for all of us. The kids started asking me to come to school plays and soccer games. I even volunteered to read during Grandparents' Day. Lily introduced me as her favorite grandparent because he tells real stories, not just fairy tales. That one stayed with me. One rainy afternoon, Claire came by after work, soaked to the bone and visibly shaken. "Rough day?" I asked, handing her a towel. She nodded. "Sometimes I still feel like I'm failing." I looked her in the eyes. "You're not." But I yell. I forget appointments. I burn dinners. You love them, I interrupted. You show up. You try. That's not failing. That's being human. She cried then. Let herself cry without apologizing for it. And I held her, just like I did when she was little. Spring came. We had a barbecue in my tiny backyard. Kids running everywhere, Claire flipping burgers, Matt manning the grill with the confidence of a man who'd only ever used a microwave. I watched them, my heart so full I thought it might burst. At one point, Claire said, "And now?" I asked. "Now I think not asking for help is the weakness. You taught me that." I looked at her, my grown-up daughter, and for the first time in years, I didn't see the distance between us. I saw connection, repair, a bridge rebuilt one honest conversation at a time. That night, when I got home, there was a card on my doorstep. Handwritten. From Claire. Inside it read, "Thank you for not listening when I said don't come. You showed me how much I needed you, not your money. Just you. Love, Claire." I pressed the card to my chest. And I cried. Quietly. Gratefully. Not from sadness, but from the kind of joy that only comes after a long, long winter. A few days after the card, Claire called again, but this time with laughter in her voice. "Dad, Jamie drew a picture of you today." "Oh yeah? What did I look like?" "Apparently, a superhero. Cape, gray hair, glasses and all." I chuckled. "That sounds about right." "He said you fix things. That you're the fixing grandpa." For a second, I couldn't answer. My throat tightened. I don't know about fixing, but I try to be there when the wheels fall off. "That's exactly why you're his hero," she said softly. There was a long pause, not uncomfortable this time. Just warm. "I'm really glad you came, Dad," she added. "Even when I told you not to." "I'm glad I didn't listen," I said. "You know, sometimes love means showing up even when you're not invited." Claire sniffled. "You know what's weird? I used to resent you. After Mom died, I was so mad that you just kept going, working, cooking, pretending. I thought you didn't feel anything." "I felt everything," I said quietly. "I just didn't know how to show it." "I know that now," she said. That spring, I started taking Jamie to the park every Tuesday afternoon. Just the two of us. He'd bring his toy trucks and ask a million questions, some funny, some oddly profound for a 6-year-old. "Do you get scared, Grandpa?" "Sometimes. Even though you're old?" "Especially because I'm old." He laughed like that was the most ridiculous thing he'd ever heard. "Old people don't get scared. They know everything." I smiled. "Knowing everything and being scared aren't opposites, Jamie. They go together." He looked thoughtful for a second, then nodded like he'd just unlocked a secret of the universe. Later that day, I watched him push his trucks through the dirt and thought about all the things I'd missed when Claire was this age, moments I traded for double shifts and overtime, thinking it was what love looked like. And maybe it was, in part, but not the whole picture. Being present, this was the piece I'd overlooked. One weekend, Claire invited me on a trip to the lake with them. Just 2 nights. Matt booked a cabin, and the kids were over the moon. I packed my fishing rod, even though I knew we'd probably spend more time chasing kids than fish. The first night, we sat around a fire pit, roasting marshmallows, the stars bleeding into the lake's still surface. Lily told ghost stories. Jamie tried to scare me with a rubber snake. Claire looked over at me and smiled. This feels like childhood again. It is childhood again, I said. For them. She nodded. And for me, a little. Then she got quiet. You know, for years, I carried around this story in my head. That you chose work over me. That you stopped caring after Mom died. That maybe I wasn't enough to keep you close. I didn't interrupt. I let her finish. But it wasn't true, she said, staring into the flames. You were grieving. You were surviving. And I never asked what that was like for you. I just made up a story that hurt less than the truth. I looked at her face in the firelight, older now, more worn, but still my little girl. I should have told you sooner, I said. That I missed her every single day. That waking up without her was like learning to breathe again, but with one lung. Claire reached over and took my hand. Thank you for saying that, she whispered. I needed to hear it. The next morning, we went on a short hike. The kids took turns riding on Matt's back and complaining about bugs. When we reached the lookout point, Claire pulled out her phone and asked a stranger to take our photo. All 5 of us, standing together, arms around each other, wind in our hair. Later, she sent it to me with the caption, "This is what rebuilding looks like." By summer, I moved in with them fully. It wasn't a perfect transition. Sharing a home after years of solitude brought its own challenges. I left the fridge open too long. Forgot to close the dog gate. Sometimes I'd wake up too early and make noise while Claire and Matt were still sleeping. But the good outweighed the friction. I became their morning guy: scrambled eggs, school lunches, bus duty. I started a little garden in the backyard. Jamie helped me plant tomatoes. Lily painted stones to mark the herbs. On my birthday, Claire surprised me with a dinner. Just us 2, at a quiet restaurant. I know it's not much, she said, handing me a small box. Inside was a key. To the house, she explained. Not because we expect you to babysit or cook or fix things. Just because you belong here now. I held the key like it was a trophy. I never thought I'd be this lucky, I said. She smiled. Me neither. One night, well into autumn, Jamie fell sick. Fever, chills, coughing fits. Claire and Matt took turns staying up with him, and so did I. At one point, I sat by his bed, wiping his forehead, whispering stories from my childhood. When Claire peeked in, she paused. You're good at this, she said softly. I shrugged. Took me a while. Well, I'm glad you're here now. We didn't say anything more. We didn't need to. Some things are louder in silence. Winter came again. The house smelled of cinnamon and old memories. Jamie and Lily helped me hang lights on the porch, though Jamie mostly tangled himself in them. Matt set up the tree inside, and Claire baked cookies just like her mother used to. Too many batches, the kitchen too warm, flour on her nose. That year, I wasn't a guest for the holidays. I was home. I watched the chaos and the laughter and felt a kind of peace I hadn't known since before Claire left for college. A peace that said, this is enough. But life doesn't stay still for long. A few days before New Year's, Claire got a call. Her job was moving their division out of state. She had 2 options: relocate with a promotion or resign. I don't know what to do, she said to me that night, pacing the kitchen. It's more money, more stability, but it means starting over. Again. Where would you go? Seattle. I nodded slowly. That's far. She leaned against the counter, eyes tired. I'd have to sell the house, find schools, uproot everything. And it feels like just now we're finally settled. We are, I said quietly. And sometimes, that's what makes the next change feel heavier. She sat down across from me. I'm scared. Then you're paying attention, I said. Big decisions should scare you. What would you do? I leaned forward, folded my hands. I'd ask myself, what matters more, building a life or keeping it safe? She looked at me, eyes suddenly filling. What if we go and everything falls apart? Then you call me, I said, and we fix it, like we always do. They made the move in February. I stayed behind not because I didn't want to go, but because I wanted to make sure it was really what they needed first. I told Claire I'd keep the house for a while, see how things felt from both ends. The goodbye at the airport was harder than I expected. Jamie clung to my coat. Lily cried quietly, embarrassed but sincere. Matt shook my hand firm, respectful. Claire hugged me longest. You gave me more than help, she whispered. You gave me a second chance at being your daughter. I couldn't find the words, just held her tighter. The house was too quiet again. Old echoes returned, creaking floors, tea kettle whistles, wind tapping the windows. But this time, the silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like rest. I spent my mornings walking to the bakery. The woman behind the counter, Margaret, had soft gray eyes and knew how to make a proper scone. I started reading again. Writing too. A memoir of sorts. Nothing fancy. Just pages filled with the things I'd learned too late and hoped my grandkids might read someday. I FaceTime with Claire every few days. We'd talk about school pickups, new co-workers, the rain. They were adjusting. Slowly. Jamie missed his old friends. Lily hated the cafeteria food. But they were okay. Better than okay. Then, one afternoon, Claire called with a glint in her eye. So we found a place. A house. Yeah. Small but cozy. And it has a guest room. I smiled. Oh. And if that guest room ever became a full-time room, we wouldn't be mad about it. Is that an invitation? I asked. She laughed. You always did love asking obvious questions. So I packed again. Sold the house. Gave away most of what I owned. Kept the photos, your old scarf, and a drawer of letters I'd never sent. I said goodbye to Margaret at the bakery, who squeezed my hand and told me to go be where the noise is. The move wasn't easy at my age, nothing is. But when I stepped into Claire's new home, smelled dinner in the oven, saw my name in crayon on the door of the guest room, it didn't feel like I was intruding. It felt like I'd been expected. We started a routine. Mondays were movie nights. Fridays, pancakes for dinner. Every evening, I read Jamie a chapter of Charlotte's Web, and every night, he asked if Charlotte was really going to die. I don't want her to, he'd say. I know, I'd whisper. But sometimes the best stories still end with goodbye. One evening, I came home from a walk and found Claire sitting at the kitchen table with a small wooden box. Dad, what's this? I looked. It was the keepsake box I had packed in secret letters I had written to her over the years, when we weren't speaking much. Birthday notes I never sent. Thoughts I never shared. I was going to give those to you when I died, I said, embarrassed. Not the most cheerful gift. She opened one. It was dated 12 years ago. Claire, I miss you. Even when I'm proud of you, I still miss you. I hope one day we talk again. Really talk. She read it, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. Why didn't you send these? Because I didn't know if they'd be welcome. She folded the letter and pressed it to her chest. They are. Every one of them. That summer, Jamie learned to ride a bike. Claire cried. I don't even know why, she said, laughing through her tears. It's just a bike. It's never just a bike, I said. It's the first time he leaves you without holding your hand. We watched him ride down the street, wobbly and determined, the wind in his hair. I remember when you learned, I added. Yeah. You fell twice. Got back up each time. That was the first day I realized you'd be okay without me one day. Claire looked at me. But I wasn't. Not really. You were strong, I said. But strength doesn't mean you don't need people. It just means you keep going even when you do. One night, Claire handed me her phone. Read this, she said. It was an email from her therapist. They'd been working together for a few months. Processing old grief, redefining motherhood, healing the daughter inside the adult. The email ended with, Claire, your father showing up changed the narrative. That little girl who felt abandoned is learning she was loved all along. I handed the phone back, unsure what to say. You didn't just come back, she said. You rewrote the ending. I shook my head. No, we did. Together. That Thanksgiving, we went around the table saying what we were grateful for. When it was my turn, I stood. I'm thankful, I said, for second chances. For uncomfortable truths. For saying the wrong thing and trying again. For the quiet parts of love, the ones that don't shout, but stay. Claire wiped her eyes. Lily smiled at me like I was magic. Jamie stood up and hugged me. Me too, Grandpa, he said. Me too. By Christmas, I felt like I'd lived a second life. It wasn't the kind of grand life you write books about or film for TV, no dramatic twists, no sweeping romances, no billion-dollar inheritances. Just warm socks, shared laughter, full kitchens, bedtime routines, and the quiet ache of healing in real time. Claire had transformed in ways even she hadn't noticed. She didn't ask for help anymore because of desperation. She asked because she finally understood that love was something to receive, not just perform. I used to think parenting was about giving everything to your kids, she told me one morning as we folded laundry together. But I've realized it's also about showing them how to ask for what they need and how to forgive. I looked at her hair in a messy knot, sleeves rolled up, humming absent-mindedly. You're a better parent than I ever was, I said. She gave me a look. Dad, no. You gave me what you could, and even when you didn't know how, you never gave up. That's what stuck. There was a long pause. I wish Mom could see this, she added, softer now. She'd be proud of you, I said. Of us. Claire reached for my hand and held it in silence. And for the first time in years, I felt whole. One evening, Jamie asked me if I was afraid to die. We were sitting outside, watching the sun disappear behind a hill. I don't think so, I said, choosing my words with care. I'm more afraid of not living while I'm still alive. He nodded thoughtfully, legs swinging off the porch step. Do you think we'll see people again after we die? I hope so, I said. I think love finds its way back, even after we're gone. He looked up at me with a child's clarity. Then I won't be scared either. February marked 2 years since I first showed up at Claire's door. We didn't celebrate, exactly, but I knew it. She knew it. That day, I found a note tucked into my breakfast plate. It read, You changed everything just by showing up. I didn't know how much I needed you until you were already here. Thank you for ignoring me when I told you to stay away. Thank you for knowing better than I did. Love, Claire. I sat with it for a long time, the paper trembling slightly in my hand. Sometimes, words come too late, and sometimes, they arrive right on time like rain in the desert. That spring, I started forgetting things. At first, it was small, misplacing keys, forgetting which day it was. But one morning, I walked halfway down the street before realizing I didn't know where I was going. My chest tightened. My knees locked up. I stood there, frozen, until a voice called my name. Claire. She had seen me from the window. Ran outside barefoot. Dad, are you okay? I blinked at her, unsure. She didn't panic. Just took my hand. It's okay, she whispered. We'll figure it out. The tests were long. The waiting was worse. Early signs of cognitive decline, they said. Maybe dementia. Maybe not. Maybe just age. But something was changing. I told Claire she didn't have to take care of me. She looked at me, fiercer than I'd seen in years. You came when I told you not to. You stayed when I didn't know how to ask. Now it's my turn. That's how this works. So we adjusted. Sticky notes on the fridge. Pill organizers. More frequent reminders. Patience, more of it than either of us ever thought we'd need. The kids helped too. Jamie would quiz me. What's today? What book are we reading? What's my teacher's name? Lily made flashcards with photos and names. Sometimes she'd sit with me, just reading in silence, holding my hand like I was the one who needed comfort now. Maybe I did. One night, I found myself sitting in my room, holding the photo album I once gave Claire. So many moments, frozen in time. The day she was born. The Halloween she dressed as a lion. Her high school graduation. One photo stopped me cold. It was a picture of me holding her, both of us laughing, her face smeared with ice cream. I looked so young, so sure. And I realized, it had never been about doing it right. It had always been about showing up, even when you were tired or scared or unsure. Especially then. One day in late summer, Claire came home from work and found me sitting on the porch with Jamie. I had my arm around him. He was crying. What happened? She asked. Jamie looked up. Grandpa couldn't remember my name. Claire's face cracked. She sat beside us, wrapped both arms around him, then reached for my hand. It's okay, she said to Jamie. He loves you. Even when his brain gets fuzzy, his heart still remembers. I wanted to speak, to reassure, but I couldn't find the words. So I just held them. And that was enough. In the fall, we visited your grave. Claire brought flowers. Jamie left a crayon drawing. I wish you could see us now, Claire whispered. I think she can, I said. The leaves were falling all around us, gold and orange and fire. And I thought, endings don't always feel like goodbyes. Sometimes, they feel like coming home. As the holidays approached, I had more bad days. Some mornings I woke up and forgot where I was. Some nights I called Claire Mom by mistake. But she never corrected me harshly, never sighed, just gently reminded me, again and again, with that same soft steadiness I once offered her when she scraped her knees. "You're safe, Dad," she'd say. "You're home." And I was. On Christmas Eve, the kids helped me light candles. I wore a paper crown from a cracker, and Claire snapped a photo all of us in the frame this time. Not posed, just real. Later that night, I sat by the fire while the rest of the house slept. Claire walked in quietly and sat beside me. "You awake?" she asked. "Barely," I said. She smiled, then handed me a small wrapped box. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a worn photo, the one from our camping trip years ago. Me and her in the woods, her cheeks flushed, my arm around her shoulder, both of us smiling like we had no idea how much the world would ask of us later. "I found this in Mom's old scrapbook," Claire said. "Thought you should have it back." I held it in my lap, staring at it for a long time. "Do you remember that day?" she asked. I nodded slowly. "We got lost. You were scared. And you said, 'We're not lost. We're just exploring a new way home.'" I smiled. "Still true." Claire leaned her head on my shoulder. "I'm so glad you found your way back to me," she whispered. "I never left," I said. "Just got a little off course. I don't know how many more Christmases I'll have. Some days I feel sharp. Some days I float in fog. But what I do know is this. When the world told me to stay away, I came anyway. When the voices in my head said I was too late, too old, too far gone, I knocked on her door. And she opened it. Love isn't always loud. It isn't always easy. But it's patient. And it waits. Even when we don't deserve it. Especially then. It was a quiet Wednesday in early spring. Claire was working late. Matt was out of town on a conference, and I was on kitchen duty. Not that anyone trusted me fully with the stove anymore. But Jamie had insisted. Only Grandpa knows how to cut my toast the right way. I'd just finished tucking the kids in when Lily appeared at the hallway with a question. "Grandpa, what was Mom like when she was my age?" That stopped me. I sat down on the edge of her bed, searching through the haze of memory. Some things were blurry now, timelines, names, appointments, but Claire at age 10? That I remembered like it was yesterday. "She was serious," I said. "Always wanted to be the best in class. Always asked too many questions." Lily smiled. "Like me. Exactly like you," I said, brushing her hair back. She hated losing. But more than that, she hated letting people down. "Did you ever let her down?" I paused. "Yes," I said honestly. "More times than I'd like to admit." "Did she forgive you?" I looked out the window, toward the small garden Claire and I had planted together the year before. "She did," I said softly. "Not all at once. But slowly, quietly, with every dinner we shared. Every story we told the kids. Every time I showed up, even when it was uncomfortable." Lily nodded like she understood more than a girl her age probably should. "Good night, Grandpa," she whispered. "Good night, Lily." Later that evening, Claire came home. She looked exhausted, but content, that kind of tired you carry when you've built something with your own hands and heart. She leaned against the kitchen counter while I made tea, her eyes fixed on the steam curling from the kettle. "Lily asked about you tonight," I said. "She's getting curious about the past," Claire replied. "About who I was. About who you were." I told her the truth, I said. "That I failed you, and you forgave me." Claire didn't say anything for a moment. Then, with the softest voice I'd ever heard from her, she said, "I used to call you him when I was angry. Or your father." I couldn't say Dad without choking on the years between us. I turned toward her. She was looking at me now, eyes tired but full. "But now," she continued, "I say my dad. Out loud. Without flinching." Something deep in me broke and healed all at once. We stood there in the quiet hum of the house, and I realized something. Forgiveness isn't a moment. It's a decision you make over and over again, until it stops hurting. That night, before bed, I passed by the photo wall in the hallway. Our lives were framed there, mismatched, imperfect, beautifully real. One photo caught my eye. It was taken just last fall. Me holding Jamie in one arm, Lily clinging to my leg, Claire behind us laughing like the child she used to be. Below it, in Claire's handwriting, was a small note. "He came when I told him not to, and saved me anyway." I stood there for a while. And I smiled.